Some moments test everything you believe about yourself. Some choices define who you really are when it matters most. On a Thursday afternoon, Tobias is riding the city tram home after another long factory shift when a frightened young girl whispers 6 desperate words that will change his life forever. She's running from dangerous men, and they're getting closer. There's nowhere to hide on a nearly empty tram, and Tobias has only seconds to decide. He's not a hero. He's a struggling single father, barely keeping his own world together. But right now, this child's life depends entirely on what he does next. What would you do in that moment? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The alarm clock's insistent beeping cut through the darkness at 4:30 in the morning, the same as it had every workday for the past 3 years. Tobias Calloway reached over and silenced it with the practiced motion of a man who no longer needed to think about such things. His body knew the routine: swing legs out of bed, feet finding slippers in the dark, shuffle to the bathroom without turning on the hallway light that might wake Brielle. The face that looked back at him from the mirror was 42 years old, but carried the weight of more years than that. Deep lines framed his eyes, not from laughter, but from squinting at machinery under fluorescent lights, and from nights spent worrying about bills spread across the kitchen table. His hair, once a rich brown, had gone mostly grey at the temples. His hands, rough and calloused, bore the permanent stains of machine oil that no amount of scrubbing could remove. By 5 o'clock, he was dressed in his work clothes, sturdy jeans, steel-toed boots, and a flannel shirt worn soft from countless washings. The navy blue work jacket hung by the door, its fabric thin at the elbows. The company logo faded almost to invisibility. He'd been meaning to request a new one, but somehow it never seemed important enough. In the kitchen, Tobias moved with quiet efficiency, measuring coffee grounds, setting the pot to brew. While it percolated, he assembled Brielle's lunch: turkey sandwich, apple slices, a handful of pretzels, and one of the chocolate chip cookies he'd baked over the weekend. He wrote a quick note on a napkin: "Have a great day, sweetheart. Love you more than all the stars. Dad." The apartment was modest, a 2-bedroom on the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better decades. The furniture was mismatched, collected piece by piece from thrift stores and yard sales. The couch sagged in the middle. The kitchen table wobbled, unless you remembered to wedge a folded piece of cardboard under the short leg. But it was clean, and it was home. Photographs covered the refrigerator, Brielle at every age, grinning gap-toothed at 5, serious and studious at 7. Last year's school picture showing her at 8 with her mother's same warm brown eyes. And there, in a silver frame on the bookshelf, was Caroline, his wife, Brielle's mother. Gone 3 years now, but her presence still filled every corner of this place. Cancer had taken her slowly, then all at once. The illness had drained their savings, then their emergency fund, then everything they'd set aside for Brielle's future. When she died, he'd been left with an 8-year-old daughter who'd just lost her mother. A mountain of medical debt and a grief so profound he sometimes forgot to breathe. But grief was a luxury he couldn't afford. Brielle needed him. The bills needed paying. Life continued its relentless forward march, whether you were ready or not. At 6:15, he gently opened Brielle's door and sat on the edge of her bed. She was curled under a quilt her grandmother had made, her dark hair splayed across the pillow, one arm wrapped around a stuffed rabbit that had been her constant companion since she was 3, mourning. "Sweetheart," he whispered, brushing hair from her forehead. She stirred, making a small sound of protest before her eyes blinked open. For just a moment, still caught between sleeping and waking, she looked so much like Caroline that it made his chest ache. "Morning, Daddy," she mumbled, stretching. "Is it school day?" "It is. Thursday, almost to the weekend." She sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Can we go to the park on Saturday? If it's not too cold?" "We'll see what we can do." It was the answer he gave more often than he liked. the careful hedge of a parent who couldn't make promises about anything beyond keeping a roof over their heads and food on the table. They went through their morning routine together, Brielle washing up while Tobias made her breakfast. Scrambled eggs and toast, orange juice in her favorite cup. She told him about the project she was working on at school, something involving the solar system, her enthusiasm infectious even at this early hour. At 7 o'clock, Mrs. Kavanagh knocked on their door. Estelle Kavanagh was 73, a widow who lived in the apartment next door and who had appointed herself their unofficial grandmother. She walked Brielle to school most mornings, picked her up in the afternoons when Tobias's shift ran late. "Morning, dear," she said to Brielle, then to Tobias, "You look tired. Are you taking care of yourself?" "I'm fine, Mrs. Kavanagh, just the usual." She gave him that look, the one that said she saw right through him but wouldn't press the point. "Well, you mind you don't work yourself into the ground. That girl needs her father." He hugged Brielle goodbye, held on perhaps a moment longer than necessary. "Be good. Listen to Mrs. Kavanagh. I'll see you tonight. Love you. Daddy, love you more than all the stars." Sweetheart. It was their phrase, the thing Caroline used to say. The promise that remained even when everything else had changed. The factory where Tobias worked was a 40-minute walk or a 15-minute tram ride. Most days he walked, saving the fare. But this morning he was running behind, so he caught the tram at the corner, fishing exact change from his pocket. Precision Metal Works occupied a sprawling complex on the industrial edge of the city, where the buildings were all function and no form, where the air smelled of machine oil and hot metal. Tobias had worked there for 12 years, operating the press that stamped out parts for industrial equipment. The work was hard and monotonous, but it was steady, and it paid enough to cover rent and groceries, with a little left over if he was careful. His supervisor, George Hutchins, was a fair man who appreciated reliability. Tobias was never late, never called in sick, never complained about overtime. In return, Hutchins made sure Tobias got the steadiest hours. The morning shift was the usual rhythm of noise and routine, the thud of the press, the hiss of hydraulics, the constant background roar of machinery. Tobias lost himself in the work, letting his hands and muscle memory take over while his mind drifted to the evening ahead, to helping Brielle with homework, to the groceries he needed to pick up. At 2 o'clock, Hutchins appeared beside his station and shouted over the noise, "Equipment maintenance! Shutting down early today?" Tobias nodded, surprised. Early shutdowns were rare, but he wasn't going to complain about leaving early for once. In the locker room, he changed back into the jeans and jacket he'd worn that morning. The other workers were in good spirits, joking about the unexpected free afternoon, making plans to hit the bar or catch the game. Tobias smiled and nodded, but made no such plans. He'd go home, maybe get some laundry done, start dinner early. The autumn afternoon was crisp and clear, the kind of weather that made you think about holidays approaching. Tobias stood at the tram stop, hands in his pockets, watching the city move around him. There were more police cars than usual, he noticed. Something had them on edge, probably nothing that concerned him. The tram arrived, its brakes squealing as it stopped. Tobias climbed aboard and dropped his fare in the box. The car was nearly empty. Just him, an elderly woman near the front clutching a shopping bag, and a businessman absorbed in his phone 3 rows back. He took a seat near the rear, by the window, and let his head rest against the cool glass. The tram pulled away from the stop with its familiar lurch and rattle. Tobias watched the industrial landscape slide past, warehouses, storage facilities, the tired storefronts of businesses hanging on. His mind drifted to the weekend ahead, to Brielle's request about the park. Maybe they could manage it. Maybe he could pack a lunch, make it special. She deserved more than he could give her, but he did what he could. The tram made its stops. The businessman got off. The elderly woman got off. And for a stretch, it was just Tobias and the driver, the empty car rattling through the city. He thought about taking a short nap, he was tired enough, but something kept him alert, some vague unease he couldn't name. At the next stop, The doors opened with their hydraulic hiss, and everything changed. A young girl stumbled through the doors, breathing hard, eyes wide with terror. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old, thin and small for her age, with tangled dark hair and clothes that looked slept in. A backpack hung from one shoulder, its fabric torn at the seam. Tobias straightened in his seat, instantly alert. Something was wrong. The girl's panic was unmistakable. The way she gripped the pole near the door, the rapid scan of her surroundings, the trembling in her small frame. She looked at him. Their eyes met. For a moment neither moved. Tobias saw desperation in her face, a plea he couldn't quite understand but felt in his gut. She was running from something, someone. The tram pulled away from the stop. The girl stumbled forward as the car lurched, catching herself against a seat back. She moved down the aisle toward him, her steps quick and uncertain. Tobias glanced out the window. On the sidewalk behind them, 2 men in dark clothing were scanning the street, heads turning sharply left and right. One pointed toward the departing tram. They started running. His heart kicked into a higher gear. The girl reached his row and stopped. She was close enough now that he could see the bruises on her wrists, partially hidden by her sleeves. Dirt caked her fingernails. Her lips were chapped, her face pale beneath the grime. She looked at him with those wide, terrified eyes and whispered 6 words that would fracture his world. "Can I slip under your coat?" Tobias froze. His mouth opened but no words came. His mind raced through possibilities. Was this some kind of trick? A setup? But the fear in her eyes was real. No child could fake that kind of terror. "Please," she whispered again, her voice breaking. "They'll hurt me." Through the window, Tobias saw the tram approaching the next stop. The 2 men were there, waiting. They'd somehow gotten ahead, moving fast through streets he couldn't see from his seat. One spoke into a phone. The other scanned the tram windows. Every instinct screamed warnings. "Get involved, and you risk everything. You have Brielle to think about. This isn't your problem. Call the police. Let someone else handle it." But then he looked at the girl's face again. Really looked. And saw his own daughter. Saw what would happen if Brielle were alone and afraid, and no one helped. "Quick," he said, opening his worn work jacket. The girl didn't hesitate. She pressed against him, making herself as small as possible. Tobias wrapped the jacket around her, feeling her violent trembling against his chest. She was so thin, so light, like holding air in fear. The tram stopped. The doors hissed open. Tobias forced himself to breathe normally, to look like a tired factory worker heading home, nothing more. He turned his face to the window, away from the aisle, and let his body slump in exhaustion that wasn't entirely fake. Heavy footsteps on the tram floor. 2 sets, the men moving through the car with purpose. Under his jacket, the girl had gone completely still. Tobias could feel her holding her breath. His own heart hammered so hard he was certain everyone could hear it. The footsteps came closer. "Stopped." "Excuse me?" Tobias looked up slowly, blinking like someone pulled from half-sleep. One of the men stood in the aisle, mid-30s, hard face, expensive leather jacket over a black shirt. His eyes were cold, assessing, yeah? Tobias kept his voice flat, mildly annoyed at being disturbed. "You've seen a young girl. Dark hair about this tall?" The man held his hand at roughly the height of the girl, pressed against Tobias's chest. Tobias shook his head. "Just got on. Been half asleep, sorry." The man's eyes moved over him. The work jacket, the oil-stained hands, the exhausted posture. The jacket bulged slightly where the girl hid beneath it, but in a way that could just be the thick fabric bunching. Tobias had never been more grateful for wearing an oversized coat. The second man called from the front of the tram. "Anything?" "No, empty." The cold-eyed man lingered a moment longer. Tobias met his gaze steadily, channeling every ounce of indifference he could muster. "Just a tired worker. Nothing to see here. Leave me alone." Finally, the man turned away. The footsteps retreated down the aisle. The doors hissed closed. The tram lurched forward again. Tobias waited until they'd gone 2 more stops before speaking. "They're gone." The girl didn't move. "It's okay. You're safe." They got off. Slowly she emerged from beneath his jacket, her hair wild, her face streaked with tears. She'd been silently crying. She looked up at him with gratitude so profound it made his chest ache. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, thank you. It's okay." Tobias kept his voice gentle, the tone he used with Brielle after nightmares. "You're safe now. What's your name?" She hesitated, distrust warring with desperation. "Amara, I'm Tobias." "Those men, who are they?" Her face crumpled. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "Bad people. Very bad people. Are you hurt? Do you need a doctor?" She shook her head frantically. "No doctors, no police. They have people everywhere. They'll take me back." Alarms rang in Tobias's head. This was bigger than a simple runaway situation. The organized pursuit, the fear of authorities, this had the shape of something dark. "Where are your parents, Amara?" "Dead." The word came out hollow, practiced, like she'd said it many times. "My grandmother took care of me, but she died too. 3 months ago." "I'm sorry." Tobias meant it. He knew that particular grief intimately. Amara wiped her eyes with her sleeve, leaving streaks of dirt across her face. "I've been running, hiding. They almost caught me twice. Today I thought," her voice broke, "I thought I was going to die." As she moved, her backpack shifted, and something fell out, a photograph, edges crumpled and worn. Tobias picked it up before she could. It showed Amara, younger and smiling, standing beside an elderly woman with kind eyes and silver hair. They stood in front of a small house, flowers blooming in window boxes. Amara snatched the photo back, clutching it to her chest. "That's mine. Your grandmother?" She nodded, protective and defensive. Tobias looked out the window, watching the city slide past, while his mind worked through impossible calculations. He should contact the authorities. Child Protective Services. Someone trained for this. But Amara's terror of the police was real, and if there was corruption involved, if bad people really did have connections, turning her over could mean sending her back to whatever she'd escaped from, but taking her home. That meant involving Brielle, putting his daughter at risk, stepping into something he didn't understand and couldn't control. The tram rattled on. Amara sat beside him now, clutching her backpack and that photograph, looking so small and lost. Tobias thought of Caroline. What would she do? He knew the answer. Caroline would never leave a child in danger, never. "Amara," he said carefully, "I'm going to help you, but I need you to trust me." "Can you do that?" She studied his face for a long moment. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied something, because she nodded slowly. "I'm going to take you somewhere safe for tonight. We'll figure out what to do. But you have to promise me you'll tell me the truth about what happened. About who those men are. All of it." "Okay." Her voice was barely audible. Tobias pulled the stop cord. They needed to get off this tram, take a less direct route. "Those men might come back. We're going to get off here and walk a bit. Stay close to me. If you see those men again, you tell me immediately. Understand?" Amara nodded. As the tram slowed, Tobias stood and took her hand. It was tiny in his calloused palm, cold and trembling. He led her to the doors, checking the street before stepping off. The afternoon sun was lower now, shadows lengthening. Tobias walked quickly, but not so fast as to attract attention, keeping Amara close. His mind spun through everything that would come next. Explaining this to Brielle, hiding a child in his apartment, the questions from Mrs. Kavanagh. He'd crossed a line back on that tram. There was no uncrossing it now. Whatever came next, he'd deal with it. One step at a time, that was all anyone could do. They walked 6 blocks in silence, Tobias constantly checking behind them, taking turns that made no logical sense except to throw off anyone who might be following. Amara kept pace without complaint, her small hand gripping his tighter whenever they passed strangers on the sidewalk. The apartment building looked shabbier than usual in the late afternoon light. Cracked concrete steps, peeling paint on the doorframe, a window on the second floor still boarded up from last winter. But it was home, and right now it represented safety. Tobias led Amara up the 3 flights of stairs, his keys already in hand. As they reached his floor, Mrs. Kavanagh's door opened. She stood in the doorway, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel, her sharp eyes taking in everything, the strange child, Tobias's tense posture, the protective way he positioned himself. Tobias, everything all right? Yes, ma'am. Just helping someone. We're fine. Mrs. Cavanaugh looked at Amara, who shrank behind Tobias. Child looks hungry and frightened. We're sorting it out, Tobias said, more firmly than he'd intended. The elderly woman studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You need anything, you knock. I've got soup on the stove. Thank you, Mrs. Cavanaugh. I appreciate it. Inside the apartment, Tobias locked both the deadbolt and the chain, something he rarely did. Amara stood rigid in the entryway, her backpack still clutched to her chest, eyes darting around the space like a trapped animal seeking escape routes. It's okay, Tobias said gently. You're safe here. No one's getting in. She didn't respond, didn't move. He tried a different approach. Are you hungry? When's the last time you ate? Amara's eyes flickered to the kitchen, then back to him. Yesterday morning, I think. Maybe the day before. 2 days. Maybe more. Anger flared in Tobias's chest, not at her, but at whatever circumstances had put a child on the streets, starving and terrified. Come on. Let's get some food in you, then you can clean up if you want. He led her to the kitchen table, the one with the wobbling leg, and pulled out a chair. She sat slowly, suspiciously, like someone expecting the kindness to be a trap. Tobias understood. Trust, once broken, didn't return easily. He opened the refrigerator and pulled out leftovers from last night. Chicken and rice, green beans, a container of applesauce. Simple food, but plenty of it. He heated the chicken and rice in the microwave, assembled a plate with generous portions, poured a glass of milk when he set it in front of her. Amara stared at it. Go ahead, he encouraged. She picked up the fork with shaking hands and took a small bite. Then another. Then the careful restraint vanished, and she was eating like someone who'd forgotten what full felt like, shoveling food into her mouth so fast Tobias worried she'd choke. Slow down, he said gently. There's more if you want it. You don't have to rush. She forced herself to slow, but only slightly. He watched her eat, noting the hollows in her cheeks, the way her collarbones jutted beneath her dirty shirt. How long had she been on the streets? How had she survived? When she finished the first plate, he gave her a second. She ate that too, though slower this time. Finally, she pushed back from the table, looking slightly sick from eating too much too fast. Better? She nodded. There's a bathroom down the hall. Second door. You can take a shower if you want. I'll find you some clean clothes. They'll be big, but better than what you're wearing. Amara clutched her backpack tighter. I need to keep this with me. Okay, you can take it with you. She stood, wavering slightly, then headed toward the bathroom. Tobias listened to the door close, the lock click. A moment later, he heard water running. He moved quickly to Brielle's room and dug through her closet, finding clothes from 2 years ago that might fit better than his own. A t-shirt with a faded cartoon character, sweatpants with an elastic waist, clean socks. He left them folded outside the bathroom door and knocked gently. Clean clothes out here for you. No response, but he heard the water still running. He went back to the kitchen and started cleaning up, his mind racing through everything he needed to do. Call someone, but who? Social services felt wrong given Amara's terror. The police, same problem. And if those men were part of something organized, involving authorities without knowing who to trust, could make things worse. He needed more information, needed to understand what he was dealing with. 20 minutes later, Amara emerged. Her hair, now clean, fell in wet tangles past her shoulders, darker than he'd thought, almost black. Brielle's old clothes hung loose on her frame, making her look even smaller. But her face was cleaner. The grime washed away, revealing smooth brown skin and features that would be pretty if they weren't etched with exhaustion and fear. She was shivering. Tobias grabbed a blanket from the couch and wrapped it around her shoulders. Thank you, she whispered. Sit. We need to talk. She settled on the couch, pulling the blanket tight. Tobias sat in the chair across from her, keeping some distance so she wouldn't feel crowded. Amara, I need you to tell me what happened. Why those men were chasing you. All of it. She stared at her hands, twisting the blanket's edge between her fingers. You won't believe me. Try me. I just hid you under my jacket from 2 men who looked like they meant business. I think I'm ready to believe quite a lot. She was quiet for so long, he thought she might refuse. Then, barely audible, they keep children. Sell them. Tobias's blood went cold. What? The home I was in, after my grandmother died. They said it was a foster situation, but it wasn't. There were other kids there. We weren't allowed out. Men came at night. They'd take kids away, and sometimes, her voice cracked, sometimes they didn't come back. He felt sick. How long were you there? Almost 3 months. Since my grandmother... She couldn't finish. And you escaped. She nodded. A week ago. They were moving some of us to a different location. The van stopped at a light and I ran. I've been hiding ever since. Moving at night. Staying in alleys, under bridges. Anywhere they wouldn't look. Those men on the tram work for them. They've been searching. I've seen them in different parts of the city. Today I thought I lost them, but... She looked up at him with those haunted eyes. They almost caught me. If you hadn't helped... Tobias leaned forward, his mind reeling. Human trafficking. That's what she was describing. An operation sophisticated enough to maintain a front, to have people searching the city, to have been running for God knows how long. We need to go to the police. The FBI, someone. Terror flashed across her face. No, they said they have connections, that even if we told, no one would believe us, that they'd send us back. The other kids who tried... She started crying. And please, don't call anyone, please. Okay. Tobias held up his hands. I won't, not yet. But Amara, I'm just one person. I work in a factory. I don't know how to... I don't have anywhere else to go, she said, her voice small and broken. Everyone I trusted is dead or gone. You're the only person who's helped me. Please, just for tonight. Then I'll leave. I promise. Tobias looked at this child, this terrified, traumatized child who'd been through horrors he couldn't fully imagine, and knew he couldn't turn her away, couldn't put her back on the streets. Not tonight, maybe not ever, but Brielle would be home in 30 minutes. He had to prepare her, had to figure out how to explain this. You can stay, he said, for tonight at least. Maybe longer. We'll figure it out. But there's something you need to know. Amara looked up, wary. I have a daughter. She's 8. She'll be home soon. Her name is Brielle. She's going to have questions. Fresh tears spilled down Amara's cheeks. I don't want to cause problems for you. For your family. You're not causing problems. You're a child who needs help. That's different, he paused. But I need you to understand. If you stay, even temporarily, we have to be honest with each other. No more secrets. Can you promise me that? She hesitated, then nodded. Good, now rest. You're exhausted. When Brielle gets home, we'll all talk. Figure out the next step. Amara curled up on the couch, the blanket wrapped around her like armor. Within minutes, she was asleep, the kind of deep, desperate sleep that comes after running too long on nothing. Tobias stood at the window, looking down at the street below. Somewhere out there, men were searching for the girl, sleeping on his couch. Men involved in something dark and organized. What had he gotten himself into? More importantly, what was he going to do about it? Brielle's voice in the hallway sent Tobias to the door before she could use her key. He opened it to find his daughter chatting with Mrs. Kavanaugh about a science test, her backpack slung over one shoulder, cheeks pink from the walk home. Hey, sweetheart. Hi, Daddy. You're home early. She stopped, seeing something in his face. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Come inside. We need to talk about something. Mrs. Kavanaugh met his eyes over Brielle's head, a question in her expression. Tobias gave a slight nod. Everything's under control. Though he wasn't sure, he believed it himself. Inside, Brielle spotted Amara immediately. The strange girl curled on their couch, wearing Brielle's old clothes, sleeping under their blanket. Who's that? Brielle's voice was sharp with surprise and something else, territorial protectiveness of her space, her father, her life. Tobias guided her to the kitchen table, keeping his voice low. Her name is Amara. She needed help, and I'm providing it. Just for a little while. Help with what? She's in trouble. Bad trouble. Some dangerous people were chasing her, and I helped her get away. Brielle's eyes widened. Dangerous? Daddy, what if they come here? They won't. They don't know who I am or where I live. He hoped that was true, but Brielle glanced toward the living room, confusion and fear warring on her face. Why is she wearing my clothes? Hers were dirty. I gave her some things you'd outgrown. Is that okay? Brielle bit her lip, thinking. She had her mother's generous heart, but also an 8-year-old's natural resistance to change and strangers invading her territory. Where are her parents? Gone. She has no one. That softened something in Brielle's face. She understood loss. Like Mommy? Yes, sweetheart. Like Mommy? Brielle was quiet for a moment, processing. How long is she staying? I don't know yet. Tonight, definitely. Maybe a few days while we figure things out. I know this is strange and sudden, but he took her hand. Remember what Mommy always said about helping people who need it? That we should be kind because we don't know what battles other people are fighting, Brielle recited quietly. Exactly. Amara's fighting a big battle. She needs kindness right now. Brielle looked toward the living room again, and Tobias saw the moment her natural empathy won over her uncertainty. Is she scared? Very scared. We should let her sleep then. Mommy always said sleep helps when you're scared. Tobias pulled his daughter into a hug, grateful for her compassionate heart. You're a good kid. You know that? They made dinner together. Spaghetti with sauce from a jar, garlic bread, a simple salad. Normal things. Routine. It helped settle Tobias's nerves, the familiar rhythm of cooking with his daughter beside him. Amara woke to the smell of food. She sat up slowly, disoriented, eyes darting around before remembering where she was. When she saw Brielle standing in the kitchen doorway, she tensed. Hi, Brielle said softly. I'm Brielle. This is my dad. But I guess you know that already. I'm Amara. Her voice was hoarse from sleep. Are you hungry? We made spaghetti. It's Daddy's specialty, which means it's actually pretty good, even though the sauce comes from a jar. Despite everything, Amara's lips twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. They ate together at the wobbly table, an awkward little gathering that slowly became less tense. Brielle chattered about her day, the science test, her friend's new puppy, the substitute teacher who let them go outside for extra recess. Normal kid concerns. Tobias watched Amara gradually relax, drawn into the simple warmth of ordinary family dinner conversation. After eating, Brielle asked, Do you want to watch TV? We usually watch for a little while before homework. Amara glanced at Tobias, seeking permission. He nodded. The two girls settled on the couch while Tobias cleaned up, listening to them talk in quiet voices. Brielle showed Amara her favorite shows, explained the characters, shared the blanket. Later, while Brielle did homework at the kitchen table, Tobias sat beside Amara. I need to look into some things, he said quietly. Missing children reports. See if there's anything about you. She shook her head quickly. There won't be. They wouldn't report me missing. That would bring attention. Your grandmother, when she died, who was listed as your guardian? I don't know. Social services, I guess. But the people at the home, they had paperwork. Made it look official. What was the name of the place? Brightside Group Home on the east side. Her hands clenched. But they'll have moved by now. That's what they do. The other kids said they change locations every few months. Tobias pulled out his phone and searched for Brightside Group Home. Nothing recent. Historical records showed an address, but when he checked Street View, the building appeared abandoned. You're right. It's empty. They're probably using a different name now. Different location. Amara's voice was hollow with defeat. That's why running doesn't work. They're everywhere. They have systems. The scope of what she was describing, a mobile operation, false paperwork, multiple locations, suggested serious organization and resources. This wasn't some small-time criminal enterprise. This was big, the photograph that fell from your backpack earlier, Tobias said. Your grandmother. Tell me about her, Amara's expression softened. Her name was Vera Sullivan. She raised me after my parents died. I don't remember them, I was just a baby. But Grandma Vera, she was everything. She worked hard, cleaned houses for rich people. We didn't have much, but we had each other. How did she die? Heart attack. That's what they said. Amara's voice turned bitter. But she was healthy. She walked 3 miles every day, took her vitamins. The doctor seemed surprised when it happened. Tobias's stomach tightened. You think someone killed her? I don't know. Maybe. She'd been acting strange the last few weeks, worried. She was working for this one family and she kept saying something wasn't right, that she'd seen things. But she wouldn't tell me what. Do you remember the family's name? Amara squeezed her eyes shut, thinking. Ash something. Ashworth, Ashcroft. She never said it around me much. Tobias filed that away. Tomorrow he'd do more research. But right now, watching this exhausted child on his couch, he knew the immediate priority was keeping her safe and letting her rest. Brielle finished her homework and brought Amara a book. Do you like to read? This one's my favorite. Amara took it carefully like it might break. Thank you. You can borrow it, for as long as you need. As evening became night, Tobias set up the couch properly with sheets and a proper pillow. Amara watched him work, silent but attentive. Thank you, she said when he finished, for everything. I know it's a lot. You're a child who needed help. That's not a lot. That's just the right thing to do. Most people wouldn't have helped on the tram. Then most people need to do better. He tucked the blanket around her. You're safe here tonight. I promise. Both locks are engaged and I'm a light sleeper. No one's getting in. What if they find me anyway? Then they'll have to go through me first. And I'm a lot more stubborn than I look. For the first time since he'd met her, Amara smiled, small and tentative, but real. After tucking Brielle into bed and reading her the customary bedtime story, Tobias sat in the kitchen with his laptop searching. Missing children in the area, news about trafficking operations, any mention of Brightside Group home or facilities matching what Amara described. He found nothing specific, but plenty of general information about trafficking networks operating in plain sight, using legitimate-seeming fronts, preying on vulnerable children with no family support. Around midnight, he heard soft crying from the living room. He went to check and found Amara sitting up, clutching the photograph of her grandmother, tears streaming silently. Bad dream? He asked gently. She nodded. Those are normal, especially after what you've been through. I miss her so much. Grandma Vera, she always knew what to do. Her voice broke. She would have kept me safe. Tobias sat in the chair near the couch. I'm sure she did everything she could. And I think she'd be proud of you for surviving, for escaping, for being as brave as you've been. I don't feel brave. I feel scared all the time. Brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing what needs to be done anyway. You escaped. You survived on the streets for a week. That takes courage. Amara wiped her eyes. What happens tomorrow? Tomorrow we figure out the next step. But for tonight you sleep. Everything else can wait. She lay back down, still holding the photograph. Tobias waited until her breathing evened out before returning to the kitchen. His phone sat on the table, dark and silent. He could call the police, should call them. But Amara's terror had been real, and if there was corruption involved, if the wrong people got the information, he needed to think this through carefully. One wrong move could destroy this child's last chance at safety. Tobias looked at the refrigerator, at Brielle's drawing taped there, the one showing their family, including Caroline drawn like an angel watching over them. What would you do? He asked silently. What would you tell me to do? But Caroline was gone, and he was alone with a decision that could save or destroy a life. He'd figure it out tomorrow. Right now he needed sleep, but sleep was a long time coming. Friday morning arrived with pale sunlight filtering through the apartment windows. Tobias woke early, as always, but this time he didn't go to work. He called the factory from the kitchen, speaking quietly so as not to wake the girls. Hutchins? It's Calloway. I need to call in sick today. There was a pause. George Hutchins had never heard those words from him in 12 years. You all right? You sound fine. Just need a day. Personal matter. I'll be back Monday. Everything okay with Brielle? She's fine. Family thing. I'll explain later. Another pause. All right. Take care of yourself, Calloway. Don't make a habit of this. I won't. Thank you. He hung up feeling guilty. Hutchins had been good to him, and lying didn't sit well. But the truth was too complicated to explain over the phone. Brielle left for school with Mrs. Kavanagh, as usual, though she kept glancing back at the apartment, worried. Tobias assured her everything would be fine, that Amara would still be there when she got home. After they left, he made breakfast for Amara. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice. She ate slowly this time, more controlled, though he could tell she was still hungry. Years of good nutrition didn't vanish overnight, but a week on the streets had taken its toll. "We need to talk about what happened to you," Tobias said, sitting across from her. "Everything you remember." "Details matter." Amara set down her fork, her appetite disappearing. "Where do you want me to start?" "After your grandmother died, what happened immediately after?" "A woman came to the apartment, said she was from social services. Her name was Ms. Winters or Winter, something like that. She had paperwork, said I'd be placed in temporary foster care while they looked for relatives. Did she show you identification?" "I think so. Everything was blurry. Grandma had just died. I wasn't thinking clearly." "Understandable. What happened next?" "She took me to Brightside. Said it was a group home for kids in transition. At first it seemed okay. Clean rooms, other kids, regular meals. But then I noticed things." "What things?" "We weren't allowed outside, ever. They said it was for our safety, but the windows had bars. Not on the outside where you'd see them, on the inside. And there were cameras everywhere. In the hallways, the common room. Everywhere except the bathrooms." Tobias felt his jaw tighten. "How many other children?" "It changed. Sometimes 10, sometimes fewer. Kids would disappear and new ones would arrive. The staff said the missing kids got placed with families, but..." She paused. "We could hear things at night. Cars coming and going. Adult voices. Sometimes crying. Did you recognize any of the men who visited? They kept us away when visitors came, locked in our rooms. But through the door crack I saw some of them. Expensive suits, nice cars. One time I heard someone mention a foundation. Something about charitable work. A foundation. That was interesting. Fronts often operated as non-profits. Tax benefits, public goodwill, less scrutiny. And the staff talked sometimes when they thought we couldn't hear. About merchandise and buyers and transport schedules. It took me a while to understand what they meant." "When did you realize you needed to escape?" Amara's hands started shaking. She gripped the edge of the table. "There was another girl, younger than me, maybe 7. She cried every night for her mother. One of the staff got angry, said she was damaging the product, and that she'd be moved to a less selective market if she didn't stop." Tobias felt sick. "That's when I knew I had to get out. I started planning. Watching routines, looking for opportunities. Then last week they said they were moving 5 of us to a new facility. We got loaded in a van, no windows, locked from outside. But at a stoplight the driver got distracted by something. An argument with the other guard. I was closest to the door. The lock wasn't fully engaged. I ran. They didn't chase you immediately?" "They did. I heard them shouting, but I knew the neighborhood. Grandma and I used to walk there. I cut through an alley, climbed a fence, hid in a dumpster until I heard them drive away. After that I kept moving. Different part of the city every night. Staying away from cameras and main streets. Eating from trash bins. Sleeping under overpasses. A week of that. A 10-year-old child living like a fugitive." Tobias had to look away for a moment, composing himself. "Yesterday, why were you on that tram? That's a pretty exposed place to be. I was stupid. I was so tired, so hungry. I thought I could risk public transport, get across the city faster. Then I saw them, 2 of the guards from Brightside. They spotted me at the same time. I ran. The tram was right there, doors open. I thought maybe I could lose them. But they followed, and I thought I was dead." She looked at him with those haunted eyes. "Until you helped me." Tobias reached across the table and gently covered her shaking hands with his own. "You're not going back there. I promise you that. Whatever it takes, but how can you stop them? You don't know how big they are, how connected. Maybe not. But I'm going to find out." He pulled back, thinking. "This family your grandmother worked for. The one she said wasn't right. Do you remember anything else about them?" Amara closed her eyes, concentrating. She worked there 3 days a week. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Big house on the north side. She said the man of the house was important. Some kind of businessman. He had an office at home, and she wasn't allowed in there. But one time she went in to clean and saw... She stopped. Saw what? Papers. Files with kids' names on them. Photos. She didn't tell me much because she didn't want to scare me, but she said something was wrong, that she needed to figure out what to do, and then she died. 2 weeks later. Too convenient. Way too convenient. Amara, do you still have your grandmother's things? Her papers, her phone, anything? She shook her head. Ms. Winters took everything. Said it would be held in storage until I was older. I only had my backpack because I grabbed it before we left the apartment. What's in your backpack? Besides the photograph? Clothes, a book, some... She stopped suddenly, eyes widening. Wait! She rushed to the living room and returned with her backpack, the one with the torn seam. She ran her fingers along the lining until she found something. With a sharp tug, the lining tore further, revealing a hidden pocket. Inside was a sealed envelope, yellowed with age. I didn't know this was here, Amara whispered. Grandma must have hidden it. Tobias took the envelope carefully. It was addressed in shaky handwriting, to whoever helps my Amara. His hands weren't quite steady as he opened it. Inside were several folded papers and a small flash drive on a chain. He unfolded the papers and began to read. The first was a letter in that same shaky hand. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and Amara is in trouble. My name is Vera Sullivan. I worked as a housekeeper for Philip Ashcroft, a businessman in this city. What I discovered working in his home has put both my life and my granddaughter's life in danger. Mr. Ashcroft runs a foundation called Ashcroft Children's Trust. On the surface, it helps place foster children and provides support services. In reality, it's a trafficking operation. I've seen the files, heard the conversations, witnessed transactions that made my blood run cold. I gathered evidence, photos, financial records, documents. It's all on the flash drive. I filed a police report 3 weeks ago and emergency custody papers to protect Amara. But Mr. Ashcroft has connections in law enforcement, in social services, in city government. I don't know who can be trusted. If I die suddenly, it's not natural. And if Amara disappears into the system, they'll take her just like they've taken hundreds of others. There's one person I believe can be trusted. My old school friend, Fiona Brennan, is now a special agent with the FBI, assigned to the regional office 2 hours north of the city. The coordinates on Amara's bracelet lead to my family property near her jurisdiction. Get Amara there. Get this evidence to Fiona. She'll know what to do. Please protect my granddaughter. She's all I have in this world, Vera Sullivan. Tobias read the letter twice, his heart hammering. Then he looked at Amara. Did you know about any of this? She shook her head, tears streaming. She never told me. She just said... Her voice broke. She said if anything happened to her, my bracelet would help me find a safe place. Your bracelet? Amara pushed up her left sleeve. A simple silver bracelet encircled her wrist, so thin and tarnished he'd barely noticed it. She held it out. Engraved on the inside were numbers. 47.3425, 121.7903, coordinates, just like the letter said. Tobias grabbed his phone and entered them into a map application. They pointed to a rural area north of the city, forested and remote. According to property records, the land belonged to the Sullivan estate. Your grandmother was protecting you, he said quietly. All along, she was building a way to save you, but they killed her anyway. Amara's voice was hollow. Maybe, probably, which means this evidence, he held up the flash drive, and is worth killing for. And it's also our way to stop them. What do we do? Tobias looked at the letter again, at the name. Special Agent Fiona Brennan, FBI, 2 hours north. We run, he said. We take this evidence and we run. The plan sounded simple when Tobias explained it to Amara. Wait until evening. Pack essentials. Drive to the coordinates. Find Special Agent Brennan. Turn over the evidence. Let the professionals handle it. But as the day wore on, simple became complicated. First, there was Brielle. She came home from school to find her father packing a duffel bag with clothes, non-perishable food, and a first aid kit. We're going on a trip? Her voice was uncertain, reading the tension in his movements. Sort of. Just for the weekend. Camping trip. In October. Daddy, it's too cold for camping. He stopped packing and knelt to her level. Brielle, I need to tell you something, and I need you to be brave. Can you do that? She nodded slowly, fear creeping into her eyes. Amara's in danger. The people looking for her are very bad people. We need to take her somewhere safe, and we need to go tonight. It's going to be an adventure, but also a little scary. Do you understand? Are we in danger too? He wanted to lie, to say no, everything's fine. But Brielle deserved honesty. Maybe, I don't know. But I'm going to keep both of you safe. I promise. What about school on Monday? We'll worry about that later. Right now, I need you to pack your backpack. Clothes for a few days, your warmest jacket. Anything important you don't want to leave behind? Brielle's lip trembled, but she didn't cry. Caroline's daughter, strong even when afraid. She went to her room without argument. Second complication, Mrs. Kavanaugh. She knocked on the door around 5 o'clock with a casserole dish. Made too much again, she said, but her sharp eyes swept over the duffel bag, visible in the hallway. Going somewhere? Just a quick trip. Family matter. With the strange child you brought home yesterday? Mrs. Kavanaugh, don't Mrs. Kavanaugh me, Tobias Calloway. I've lived in this building 40 years. I know trouble when I see it. And I saw trouble yesterday in that child's eyes. Tobias sighed. I can't explain everything. But yes, we're leaving for a few days. And I'd appreciate it if anyone comes asking questions. You haven't seen us. She studied him for a long moment. Someone dangerous? Yes. Good people or bad people dangerous? Very bad people. Mrs. Kavanaugh nodded slowly. Then you take care of those girls. And you come back safe, you hear? This building needs good men like you. Thank you. He meant it. If anyone comes looking, I'm 73 and half deaf. Can't remember much these days. Convenient, that. She winked. Go on now, and take the casserole. You'll need to eat. The third complication arrived at 6:30. Just as they were preparing to leave, a knock at the door. Not Mrs. Kavanaugh's gentle tap, harder, more insistent. Tobias froze. Through the peephole he saw two men in business casual clothing, button-down shirts, slacks. They looked professional, normal, but something in their posture set off alarms. Tobias Calloway. One called through the door. We're from Child Protective Services. We need to speak with you about a minor in your care. Amara went white. She grabbed Tobias's arm, nails digging in. It's them, she whispered. I recognize the voice. His heart hammered. Are you sure? The tall one. He was at Brightside. One of the guards. The knocking came again. Mr. Calloway, we know you're home. Please open the door. This is regarding the welfare of a child. Tobias's mind raced. They'd found him somehow. Tracked him down. Maybe from security cameras on the tram. Maybe from Mrs. Kavanaugh asking around. Didn't matter how, they were here. Brielle, he whispered urgently. Take Amara to your room.
Stay quiet.
Don't come out no matter what you hear. Daddy, now. The girls disappeared down the hallway. Tobias grabbed his phone, opened the recording app and set it on the counter. Then he opened the door but kept the chain engaged. Can I help you? The tall one smiled, showing too many teeth. Mr. Calloway, thank you. We're following up on a report about a missing child. We have reason to believe she may have sought shelter here. I don't know what you're talking about. A girl named Amara Sullivan, about 10 years old. She's a ward of the state, ran away from her group home. We're very concerned for her safety. Haven't seen anyone matching that description. The shorter man spoke up. Sir, we have witnesses who saw you boarding a tram yesterday with a young girl. We just want to make sure she's safe and returned to proper care. Like I said, I don't know what you're talking about. The tall one's smile vanished. Mr. Calloway, interfering with child welfare services is a crime. If you're harboring a runaway, you could face charges. Let us do a quick check of your apartment. If she's not here, we'll be on our way. You got a warrant? We don't need a warrant for welfare checks. Actually, you do. Unless there's immediate danger, which there isn't, you need either my permission or a warrant to enter. I'm not giving permission. The shorter man's expression hardened. You're making this difficult. I'm exercising my rights. You want to search my apartment, come back with a warrant and a real badge. I'm betting neither of you are actually from Child Protective Services. The tall one stepped closer to the door. Mr. Calloway, you're in over your head. You don't understand what you're involved in. Give us the girl, walk away. Keep your own daughter safe. There it was. The threat. Barely veiled but clear. You just threatened my child. On camera. Tobias held up his phone. Everything you've said is recorded. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. And if I see you again, if you come near my daughter or this building, that recording goes straight to the real police. Understand? The two men exchanged glances. The tall one's jaw clenched. You're making a big mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. No, get out of my building. They left, but slowly, making it clear it wasn't over. Tobias watched through the peephole until they disappeared down the stairs. Then he locked the door, hands shaking with adrenaline. They're gone, he called. The girls emerged, Brielle pale and Amara looking like she might be sick. We need to leave now, Amara said. Right now. They'll be back, with more people. Or they'll just break in. She was right. The confrontation had bought them maybe an hour. Maybe less. Okay, grab everything. We go out the back way, through the basement exit. They move fast, gathering bags, checking supplies. Tobias added the flash drive on its chain around his neck, tucking it under his shirt. The letter and documents went into a waterproof bag in the duffel. At the door, he paused. Took one last look at the apartment, the only home Brielle had known since Caroline died. The photos on the fridge, the worn furniture. Their life, small but good, might not see it again for a while. Let's go. They took the back stairs to the basement, moved through the laundry room, and exited into the alley behind the building. Tobias's truck was parked 2 blocks away. They walked quickly but not running. Running attracted attention. The October evening was cold, darkness settling over the city. Tobias kept scanning for the two men, for anyone watching. His truck appeared untouched, old, rust-spotted but reliable. He loaded the bags while the girls climbed in. The engine turned over with its familiar rough idle. Tobias pulled out onto the street, checking mirrors obsessively. Where are we going? Brielle asked, voice small. North. To the mountains. Somewhere safe. Will we come home? Yes, sweetheart. This isn't forever. Just until we fix this. In the passenger seat, Amara stared straight ahead, clutching her backpack. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry I brought this to you. You didn't bring anything. You asked for help. That's different. But your home, your life, can be rebuilt. You can't. Some things matter more than apartments and routines. He navigated through the city streets, taking a winding route, checking constantly for following vehicles. The sun had fully set now, streetlights casting yellow pools on wet pavement. They were 20 minutes out when Tobias noticed headlights behind them, maintaining distance but matching every turn. His gut clenched. We might have a problem, he said quietly. Amara turned to look. The black car. Don't stare. Just watch from the mirror. 3 more turns. The car followed each time. They found us, Amara said, voice dead. Brielle grabbed Tobias's arm. Daddy? It's okay. We're going to lose them. But his old truck was no match for their newer vehicle. And they had at least an hour of driving before reaching the coordinates. An hour of being pursued on dark country roads with 2 frightened children depending on him. He pressed the accelerator harder, the truck's engine protesting but responding. The headlights behind them accelerated too. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The pursuit continued for 20 minutes, the black car maintaining steady distance, neither closing in nor falling back. Tobias's hands ached from gripping the steering wheel. His mind raced through options, all bad. He couldn't outrun them. Couldn't call the police without risking corrupt officers. Couldn't stop without putting the girls in immediate danger. Daddy, I'm scared, Brielle whispered. I know, sweetheart. Hold on tight. They left the city proper, roads narrowing from 4 lanes to 2, streetlights giving way to darkness. The pursuing car's headlights grew brighter in his mirror. They were closing the distance now, no longer pretending. Then, unexpectedly, the car accelerated hard and pulled alongside. The passenger window rolled down. The tall man from the apartment leaned out. Pull over, Calloway. Don't make this worse. Tobias didn't respond, didn't look, just kept driving, knuckles white on the wheel. The car pulled ahead, then cut in front sharply, brake lights flashing. Tobias swerved onto the shoulder, gravel spraying, barely avoiding collision. The truck fishtailed, but held. Behind them, another vehicle appeared, a second black car. They were boxing him in. What do we do? Amara's voice was pure terror. Tobias saw a turnoff ahead, barely visible, a farm access road. He made a split-second decision and cranked the wheel hard right, no signal, no warning. The truck bounced violently onto the unpaved road, suspension groaning. The pursuing cars overshot the turn. Tobias heard tires squealing as they braked and reversed. He'd bought seconds, maybe a minute. The access road was rough, full of potholes and loose gravel. The truck bounced and jolted, Brielle crying now, Amara holding her. Tobias pushed harder, fighting the wheel, praying something vital didn't break. The road emerged onto a different highway. Tobias turned right, north toward the coordinates, and accelerated. The truck's old engine roared, giving everything it had. For a moment he thought they'd lost them. The highway stretched empty behind them, just darkness and silence. Then headlights appeared. Both cars, reforming pursuit. They're not giving up, Amara said. Neither am I. The GPS showed the coordinates property 30 miles ahead. 30 miles of dark rural highway with 2 cars full of dangerous men hunting them. Tobias's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered on speaker, Mr. Calloway. A smooth voice, educated, controlled. Not one of the men from the apartment. My name is Philip Ashcroft. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Ice flooded Tobias's veins. The man from the letter, the one Vera Sullivan had tried to expose. I don't have anything of yours. Please don't insult my intelligence. You have Amara Sullivan, and more importantly, you have something her grandmother stole from me. A flash drive with information that doesn't belong in your hands. Information about your trafficking operation. About the children you've kidnapped and sold. A pause. I see Vera was thorough in her delusions. Mr. Calloway, you're a factory worker. A single father. You're in over your head with things you don't understand. I understand enough. Then understand this. I have resources you can't imagine. Connections throughout law enforcement, social services, city government. I know where you live, where your daughter goes to school, where you work. Every person you care about is within my reach. Tobias's blood ran cold, but he kept his voice steady. Then why are you calling? Why not just take what you want? Because I'm offering you a choice. Pull over. Give me the flash drive and Amara. In return, you and your daughter walk away. You go home, back to your life. No one gets hurt. You forget this ever happened. And if I refuse, then I make different calls. To different people. People who specialize in making problems disappear. Your daughter becomes collateral damage. Is that what you want? For her to pay for your stubbornness? Tobias looked at Brielle's frightened face in the rearview mirror. At Amara beside her, both girls' futures hanging on his next words. You've already threatened my daughter, he said. Which means I can't trust anything you promise. So here's my counteroffer. Back off, or this flash drive goes to the FBI. I've got nothing to lose now. Ashcroft's voice turned cold. You're making a fatal mistake. Add it to the list. He hung up. Daddy, who was that? Brielle asked. No one important, but his hands were shaking harder now. He'd just made an enemy of someone powerful and ruthless. Someone who could follow through on every threat. The pursuing cars surged forward, aggressive now. One pulled alongside again, trying to force him off the road. Tobias swerved, tires screaming. The truck's right wheels hit soft shoulder and he felt it sliding, losing traction. He corrected hard, too hard, and the truck slewed left. For a horrible moment they were sideways across both lanes, headlights from oncoming traffic suddenly filling the windshield. Tobias wrenched the wheel, and somehow, miracle or luck, the truck straightened. The oncoming car blared past, horns screaming rage and terror. Sorry, sorry, he gasped, heart hammering. They crested a hill and the GPS showed the coordinates turn off a quarter-mile ahead. A small road disappearing into forest. No streetlights, no houses visible. The pursuing cars were right behind them now, one on each side. They were going to ram him. force him off the road before he could reach the turn-off. Tobias saw the turn approaching. No time for subtlety. He slammed the brakes, the truck's tires locked, rubber shrieking. Both pursuing cars shot past, surprised by the sudden stop. Tobias cranked the wheel and accelerated onto the turn-off before they could react. The narrow road plunged into darkness, trees pressing close on both sides. His headlights barely penetrated the gloom. Behind them, the pursuing cars braked hard, reversed, followed, but the narrow road limited their options. They could only follow single file now, couldn't box him in. The road wound through dense forest, climbing steadily. Tobias pushed the truck harder than he should, suspension bottoming out on rough patches, branches scraping the sides. A gate appeared ahead, weathered wood, a rusted chain hanging loose. He didn't slow, just crashed through. The chain snapped, the gate swinging open. Beyond it, the road became barely more than a trail. The truck bounced violently over ruts and exposed roots. Brielle cried out as her head hit the ceiling. Then buildings appeared in the headlights. An old farmhouse, dark and silent. A barn door hanging open, and behind the barn, faint lights. Not from the buildings, but from somewhere else. Tobias skidded to a stop in front of the farmhouse, gravel spraying. He killed the lights, but left the engine running. Out! Now, they tumbled from the truck, grabbing bags. Tobias grabbed Brielle's hand, Amara right behind them. They ran for the farmhouse. Behind them, headlights appeared through the trees. The pursuing cars had made it through the gate. Tobias tried the farmhouse door, locked. He put his shoulder into it. Old wood splintered and gave way. Inside was darkness and the smell of dust and age. He pulled the girls in and pushed the broken door mostly closed. Through gaps in the boards covering the windows, he watched the cars arrive. Doors opened. 4 men emerged, armed now with flashlights and his stomach clenched pistols. They'd come ready for violence. Check the house, the tall one called. They're here somewhere. Footsteps on the porch. Tobias pulled the girls deeper into the farmhouse, toward the back. Looking for another exit, another option, then sound outside. Different sound. More engines. More vehicles. Through the window, Tobias saw lights suddenly blaze to life. Not headlights, floodlights, professional-grade illumination turning night into day. A voice through a loudspeaker, calm and authoritative. "Federal agents! Drop your weapons! Hands where we can see them." The 4 men froze, confused, caught in the lights. "This is the FBI. You are surrounded. Drop your weapons now." It happened fast. The men tried to run, but figures in tactical gear materialized from the darkness. Within seconds, all 4 were on the ground, hands being zip-tied behind their backs. Tobias stood frozen, disbelieving. The FBI. "Here? How?" The farmhouse door opened carefully. A woman stood silhouetted in the doorway, mid-40s, wearing an FBI windbreaker, pistol holstered at her hip. Tobias Calloway. Her voice was steady, professional. "I'm Special Agent Fiona Brennan. I believe you have something for me." Tobias couldn't speak, could barely process what had just happened. Brennan stepped inside, hands visible and non-threatening. "It's all right. You're safe now. All of you. How did you... Your neighbor, Mrs. Kavanaugh, she found my contact information in some old letters, called me hours ago, described the situation. We mobilized immediately. Mrs. Kavanaugh, that sharp-eyed, wonderful woman who'd pretended to be deaf and forgetful. The property," Tobias started. "We've been monitoring it since Vera Sullivan's death. She filed a police report weeks ago. When it disappeared from local records, she reached out to me directly. I've been investigating Ashcroft for months. Vera's murder investigation is still active." Murder. Her death was no heart attack. Autopsy showed traces of potassium chloride. Untraceable unless you're looking for it. We've been building a case, but needed proof. She looked at Amara. "You must be Amara. Your grandmother was very brave. She was trying to protect you." Amara was crying now, great heaving sobs. Brennan knelt to her level. "You're safe now, sweetheart. They can't hurt you anymore." "The flash drive," Tobias said, pulling the chain over his head. "Everything's on here. Financial records, photos, communications. Everything Vera gathered." Brennan took it carefully, like the precious evidence it was. "This is going to help us save a lot of children." "Because of Vera," And because of you, Tobias felt his legs go weak. He sat down hard on the dusty floor, Brielle immediately in his arms. "It's over?" she asked. "It's over, sweetheart." But even as he said it, he wondered if it was true. If it ever really ended, when you looked into darkness this deep. The FBI field office was nothing like Tobias had imagined. Sterile hallways, fluorescent lights, the smell of burnt coffee and institutional cleaning products. They'd been driven there in the back of an FBI vehicle, leaving his truck at the property to be processed as evidence. Now, at 2 a.m, he sat in a conference room with Brielle, asleep against his shoulder, while Agent Brennan reviewed the contents of the flash drive with her team. Amara was in another room, being interviewed by specialists trained for child victims. Through the window, Tobias could see her talking, gesturing, sometimes crying. Every instinct screamed to go to her, but Brennan had been firm. She needed to give her statement without influence. "Mr. Calloway?" A younger agent approached with coffee. "You should try to rest. This is going to take a while. I can't rest. Not until I know what happens next." The agent nodded, understanding in his eyes. "You did something remarkable tonight. Most people would have called it in and walked away. Most people don't have daughters, don't know what it feels like to see a child's terror and do nothing. Still, you risked everything. Your home, your job, your own child's safety. Had he?" Tobias wasn't sure anymore. Everything felt surreal, like watching someone else's life unfold. Brennan emerged from the analysis room, her expression grim but satisfied. She sat across from Tobias, folders spread before her. "The flash drive is extraordinary. Financial transactions linking Ashcroft's foundation to offshore accounts. Communications detailing transport schedules, prices, buyer information. Photographs documenting everything. Vera Sullivan built an airtight case, so you can arrest him." "Ashcroft? We already have teams moving on multiple locations. Ashcroft's home, his office, the current group home facility. By sunrise, we'll have 20-plus individuals in custody." Relief flooded through Tobias, but Brennan's expression remained serious. "However, there's a complication." His stomach tightened. "What kind of complication?" "Philip Ashcroft isn't just a criminal. He's wealthy, connected, and sophisticated. He has lawyers on retainer who specialize in making problems disappear. The men we arrested tonight won't talk. They're professionals who know the system. And Ashcroft himself will claim ignorance, blame subordinates, hide behind corporate structures. But the evidence is compelling but circumstantial in places. His lawyers will argue it was stolen, tampered with, inadmissible. They'll delay, appeal, tie us up in court for years. And in the meantime," she paused, "people like Ashcroft have long memories. Witnesses have a way of disappearing or changing their testimony." Understanding hit Tobias like cold water. "You're saying we're still in danger. I'm saying Ashcroft operates in a world where revenge is business." "You exposed him. Amara can testify about what she witnessed. That makes both of you threats. So what do? We build the strongest case possible. We protect you and the girls. We make sure when this goes to trial, it's so ironclad that no lawyer can crack it. And until then you're in witness protection protocols. New location, new identities if necessary. 24-hour security. It's not ideal, but it's temporary." Tobias looked at Brielle, sleeping against him, so small and innocent. She'd already lost her mother. Now she'd lose her home, her school, her friends. Everything familiar stripped away because her father chose to help a stranger. Would Caroline think he'd done the right thing? Or would she be angry that he'd put their daughter at risk? "How long?" he asked. "Could be months. Could be longer. Depends on how the case develops. I have a job. Brielle has school. We have a life, I know. And I'm sorry. But this is what justice costs sometimes." Brennan leaned forward. "Mr. Calloway, Tobias, I've been doing this work 15 years. I've seen terrible things. Children treated as commodities. Lives destroyed by monsters who hide behind respectability. What you did tonight, what Vera did before she died, it matters. You're saving dozens of children, maybe hundreds when we trace the full network. At what cost to my own child? At whatever cost it takes to sleep at night, knowing you did the right thing." The door opened, and the specialist emerged with Amara. The girl looked exhausted. hollowed out, but there was something different in her posture. Less hunched, less terrified, she came straight to Tobias and sat beside him. Not touching, but close. "They believe me," she said quietly. "About everything. Of course they believe you. The people at Brightside said no one would. That if I told, they'd call me a liar. But Agent Brennan believes me." Brennan smiled gently. "Every word. And we're going to make sure those people never hurt anyone again. What happens to me now?" Amara's voice was small. "Do I go to another home?" "Temporarily, you'll stay in protective custody. But we're exploring options. Your grandmother listed preferences in her legal documents. She wanted you placed with someone she trusted, but everyone she trusted is dead or gone." Tobias found himself speaking before thinking. "Not everyone." 3 pairs of eyes turned to him. "What?" Amara whispered. "I mean, if it's allowed, if it's legally possible." He looked at Brennan. "Could she stay with us? Temporarily until things are sorted out?" "Daddy?" Brielle had woken listening. "Really?" "She needs somewhere safe. We need protection anyway. Makes sense to—" He stopped, realizing how insane it sounded. "I'm sorry. That's not my decision to make. I'm sure there are procedures." "There are," Brennan said carefully. "Emergency foster placement requires extensive vetting, background checks, home studies. But given the circumstances, and given that Amara has expressed a preference to stay with you, we could fast-track the process. I could stay." Amara's voice cracked with hope. "Nothing's permanent yet," Brennan cautioned. "But temporarily, while we build the case and provide protection, it's possible. If Mr. Calloway is willing to undergo the process." Tobias looked at his daughter. "Brielle, this affects you too. What do you think?" Brielle was quiet for a moment, then reached across her father and took Amara's hand. "Mommy always said family isn't just blood. It's people who show up when it matters." Amara's family now. Simple words from an 8-year-old that somehow captured everything. "Then I'm willing," Tobias said. "Whatever process you need, I'll do it." Amara started crying, not the terrified sobbing from before, but something different. Relief, gratitude, hope. Brennan nodded slowly. "All right, we'll start the paperwork in the morning. For now, we have a safe house prepared. All 3 of you will stay there until we've secured the primary locations and assessed the threat level. How long will that take?" 48 hours, maybe 72. Then we'll know more about what we're dealing with. A safe house, protective custody, emergency foster placement. 6 months ago, these were concepts from television shows. Now they were Tobias's reality. He stood, carefully so as not to disturb Brielle. Amara stood too, still clutching Brielle's hand. "Let's go," he said. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." As they followed Brennan through the sterile hallways, Tobias caught sight of his reflection in a window. A factory worker who'd become something else, protector, guardian, accidental hero. He barely recognized himself, but maybe that was the point. Maybe you never knew who you were until the moment demanded you become more. Outside, dawn was breaking over the city. A new day, a new life, whether he was ready or not. 3 days in the safe house felt like 3 weeks. A nondescript ranch home in a suburban neighborhood, protected by agents who rotated in 12-hour shifts. The girls watched television, played board games, tried to pretend everything was normal, while armed guards stood watch outside. Tobias spent the time giving statements, reviewing evidence, answering endless questions. The scope of Ashcroft's operation grew clearer with each briefing, not just local but interstate. Children moved across state lines, sold to buyers across the country. The foundation was just the visible tip of something massive and dark. On the 4th morning, Brennan arrived earlier than usual, her expression tense. "We have a problem." Tobias's stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "Ashcroft made bail 2 hours ago. $5 million, paid immediately. His lawyers argued he's a respected businessman with no flight risk." "You're joking." "I wish I were." The judge accepted character references from 2 city councilmen and a state senator, all claiming Ashcroft is being railroaded, so he's just free. Technically on house arrest with an ankle monitor, but yes. And that means he has access to resources again. Communication, money, people who work for him. Tobias felt rage building. You said we'd be safe, that this was over. I said we'd protect you. And we will. But the situation has changed. We need to move you to a more secure location while we strengthen the case. Move us where? A federal facility. More isolated? Maximum security. Brielle appeared in the doorway, having heard everything. We have to leave again? Brennan's expression softened. Just for a little while longer, sweetheart. Until the trial. When's the trial? Could be months. The system moves slowly. Months? Brielle's voice rose. We have to hide for months? Tobias pulled her close. We'll figure it out, but doubt gnawed at him. How long could they live like this? Always running, always afraid. And what happened when the trial finally came? Would Ashcroft's lawyers tear apart their testimony? Would corrupt officials make evidence disappear? That afternoon, as they packed for another move, Amara found Tobias in the kitchen. This is my fault, she said quietly. You should let them take me. Put me in foster care somewhere far away. Then you and Brielle could go home. Absolutely not. But you heard Agent Brennan. This could take months. You're losing everything because of me. Tobias knelt to her level. Listen to me. What we're losing is time. What we're gaining is justice. There's no comparison. But Brielle understands. She's stronger than you think. And so are you. I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm destroying your life. You're not destroying anything. Ashcroft destroyed his own life by making terrible choices. We're just making sure he faces consequences. Amara looked away, tears threatening. My grandmother died for this. And for what? He's still free. He still has power, for now. But the truth has a way of winning eventually. Your grandmother knew that. It's why she gathered evidence. Why she protected you. I miss her so much. I know. But she's still protecting you. Through the evidence she gathered. Through the plans she made. She's still fighting for you. That evening, as they prepared to move again, Brennan received a call. Tobias watched her expression change, surprise, then grim satisfaction. What? He asked when she hung up. One of the men arrested the other night started talking. Offered a plea deal in exchange for testimony. He's giving us names, locations, details about the operation, including direct communications with Ashcroft about specific children. That's good, right? It's huge. It's the kind of testimony that can't be dismissed as circumstantial. Direct evidence of Ashcroft's involvement from someone on the inside. For the first time in days, Tobias felt hope. Real hope. Does this change things? The timeline? It might. The U.S. attorney is reviewing the new evidence now. If it's as solid as it sounds, we could move to arrest Ashcroft again. This time on federal charges that don't allow bail. When will you know? Hours. Maybe a day. That night in the safe house's living room, Tobias watched both girls sleep on the couch. Brielle and Amara curled together under a shared blanket, the way sisters might. Something had shifted in the past few days. They'd gone from strangers to family bound by trauma and trust. His phone buzzed. A text from Brennan, movement on the case. Major developments. Stay alert, stay alert. What did that mean? Outside, he heard the agent's radios crackle. Urgent voices, movement. Tobias went to the window. 3 black SUVs were pulling up to the house. Not FBI vehicles. Wrong markings. His blood went cold. The front door burst open. Agent Brennan rushed in, weapon drawn. Get the girls. Back door, now. What's happening? Ashcroft's people. They found us. Move. Tobias grabbed both girls, still drowsy and confused. The back door, they ran for it. Behind them, the sound of breaking glass. Shouts, a gunshot. They were out of time. They burst through the back door into cold darkness. Brennan right behind them. Other agents forming a protective wall. More gunfire from inside the house. Controlled burst, professional. The trees. Brennan pointed to a wooded area beyond the backyard. Go! I'll cover you! Tobias ran. A girl under each arm, stumbling over uneven ground. Behind them, chaos. Shouts, more gunshots, sirens in the distance. The trees loomed closer, shadows offering cover. They crashed into the woods, branches whipping at their faces. Tobias kept moving deeper into darkness away from the house. The girls clung to him, silent with terror. 100 yards in, he stopped, gasping for breath. Set the girls down but kept them close. Stay low. Stay quiet. Through the trees, he could see the safe house lit up like a war zone. Muzzle flashes. Figures moving in tactical formation. FBI backup had arrived. More vehicles, more agents, overwhelming force. But were they in time? Had anyone been hurt? Footsteps behind them. Tobias spun, pushing the girls behind him. Agent Brennan emerged from the darkness, her weapon lowered. "It's me. You're okay." "We're okay." "What happened?" Ashcroft sent a team. Professional mercenaries. "They breached the perimeter, but we held them off until backup arrived." "How did they find us?" "We're still figuring that out. But we have them contained now. 3 in custody, 2 wounded, 1 escaped, 1 escaped." The words hung in the cold air. "We need to move you again, immediately, somewhere Ashcroft can't reach." "There is no such place." Tobias's frustration boiled over. He has unlimited resources. Connections everywhere. How do we fight that? "By finishing what we started." Brennan's voice was steel. "The cooperating witness gave us everything we need. As of 1 hour ago, federal warrants were issued for Ashcroft and 17 associates. Teams are moving on, all of them simultaneously. Now, tonight, right now, including Ashcroft's home. He violated house arrest by coordinating this attack. The ankle monitor was tampered with. He's going to federal prison, no bail, no exceptions. You're sure?" "I'm sure, but until he's actually in custody, you're still at risk. We need to get you somewhere completely secure. Military base, maybe. Somewhere even Ashcroft's money can't reach." Sirens grew louder. More backup arriving. The woods lit up with flashlight beams as agents secured the perimeter. "Come on," Brennan said. "Let's get you out of here." They emerged from the trees to organized chaos. Paramedics treating wounded agents. Prisoners in restraints being loaded into vehicles. The safe house's front windows blown out, door splintered. A young agent approached Brennan. "Ma'am, we have confirmation. Ashcroft is in custody. Arrested at his home 15 minutes ago. No resistance." Brennan closed her eyes briefly, relief washing over her face. "Thank God. Does that mean it's really over?" Brielle asked, her small voice cutting through the noise. "The immediate danger, yes," Brennan said. "But there's still a long road ahead. Trial preparation, testimony, justice takes time, but we're safe now." "You're safe now." Amara had been silent throughout, but now she spoke. "The other children. At Brightside and the other places, what happens to them?" "We've raided 4 facilities tonight. 37 children recovered so far. They're being taken to legitimate care facilities. Medical attention, counseling, family reunification when possible. Because of my grandmother's evidence? Because of your grandmother's courage. And yours. And Mr. Calloway's. You all played a part in saving those children. 37 children. Tobias let that number sink in. 37 lives changed. Maybe saved. Worth it. All of it worth it. An SUV pulled up, this one clearly FBI. "Let's get you somewhere comfortable," Brennan said. "Proper facility this time. Maximum security. We'll keep you there until Ashcroft's arraignment. Then we can discuss next steps." They climbed into the vehicle, exhausted and overwhelmed. As they pulled away, Tobias looked back at the destroyed safe house, at the agents still processing the scene. How close had they come to dying tonight? How close had he come to failing these girls who depended on him? But they'd survived. More than survived, they'd won. Brielle leaned against him, half asleep. Amara on his other side, clutching her grandmother's photograph. His makeshift family held together by crisis and choice. "Daddy," Brielle murmured. "Can we go home soon?" "Soon, sweetheart. I promise." And this time he believed it. The worst was behind them. Justice was ahead. Home was waiting. They just had to hold on a little longer. 6 months later, spring sunshine filled the apartment windows. The same apartment, the same worn furniture, but everything felt different. Lighter. Safe. Tobias stood at the kitchen counter preparing dinner while both girls worked on homework at the wobbly table. Brielle helping Amara with a math problem, their heads bent together over shared notebooks. The scene so ordinary, so beautifully mundane, that Tobias had to pause and appreciate it. "Carry the 2, Brielle was saying. "See, then it makes sense." "Oh, I get it now, thanks." The trial had lasted 3 weeks. Philip Ashcroft and 14 associates convicted on multiple federal charges: human trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy, murder. The evidence had been overwhelming. Vera Sullivan's flash drive, combined with testimony from the cooperating witness and the children rescued from the facilities, created an airtight case. Ashcroft would spend the rest of his life in federal prison, no parole, no appeals likely to succeed, justice finally delivered. The months leading up to the trial had been difficult. Protective custody, endless depositions, the weight of knowing their testimony could make or break the case. Amara had been terrified to testify, but when the moment came, she'd been remarkably composed, telling her story with quiet strength that left the courtroom silent. The defense attorneys had tried to discredit her, to paint her as confused or coached. But the evidence spoke louder than any cross-examination. And when Tobias took the stand, describing the pursuit, the threats, the terror in Amara's eyes when she'd whispered those 6 words on the tram, even the jury members had tears in their eyes. After the verdict, life had slowly returned to normal. Tobias back at the factory, Hutchins welcoming him without questions. Brielle back at her school, readjusting to routine. And Amara, dinner's almost ready, Tobias called. Amara looked up, smiling. 6 months of regular meals, safety, and love had transformed her. The haunted look had faded from her eyes, replaced by something that looked like peace. She'd gained weight, her face fuller and healthier. She laughed now, played, acted like the child she should have been all along. The foster placement paperwork had been finalized last month. Temporary custody granted while they navigated the longer process toward adoption. It would take time, background checks, home studies, court appearances, but Agent Brennan had assured them it was just procedure. Amara had no other family. She'd chosen them. The court would likely approve. Mrs. Kavanaugh knocked and entered without waiting, carrying a pie. Made apple. Thought you could use dessert. Mrs. Kavanaugh, you're spoiling us. Nonsense. Family takes care of family. She set the pie on the counter and smiled at the girls. How was school? Good, Brielle said. Amara got an A on her science project. Did she now? Well done, dear. Amara beamed, pride and belonging radiating from her. After Mrs. Kavanaugh left, they ate together, spaghetti again, because some traditions mattered, and talked about their days. Normal things, school things, friend things. The kind of conversation that would bore anyone listening, but meant everything to those living it. Later, after dishes were cleaned and homework double-checked, Tobias found Amara standing by the refrigerator, looking at the photographs there. The old picture of him, Caroline and Brielle. And beside it now a new one, taken last month, showing all 3 of them together. Tobias, Brielle, and Amara, a family. You okay? He asked gently. I was just thinking about Grandma Vera, wishing she could see this. I think she can, somewhere. She'd like you. She'd be happy I found you. We found each other. At exactly the right moment, Amara turned to face him. Thank you. For everything. For not walking away on that tram. For risking everything to keep me safe. But her voice caught. For becoming my family when I had none. Tobias pulled her into a hug. You're not alone anymore. You never will be again, I know. That's what makes me so happy. At bedtime, he tucked both girls in, Brielle in her room, Amara in what had been the spare room, but was now truly hers. Decorated with posters she'd chosen, books she'd selected, art projects from school covering the walls. Good night. Sweetheart, he said, kissing Amara's forehead. Good night. Dad. She'd started calling him that last month. The first time, he'd cried. In the kitchen, Tobias made tea and sat at the wobbly table, looking at the legal documents waiting for his signature. Final adoption papers. The judge would review them next month. Then it would be official. His phone buzzed. A message from Agent Brennan. Heard the final appeal was denied. It's really over. You did good, Tobias. Real good, he typed back. We all did. Tell Vera we kept her promise. Outside the window, the city moved through its evening rhythms. Ordinary lives, extraordinary moments hidden in the everyday. Somewhere out there, 37 children were rebuilding their lives. Somewhere justice had been served. Somewhere light had pushed back darkness. And here, in this small apartment with its worn furniture and wobbly table, a factory worker who'd become a father to 2, daughters instead of one, sat in the quiet gratitude of knowing he'd made the right choice. Some moments test everything you believe about yourself. Some choices define who you really are when it matters most. On that Thursday afternoon, when a frightened girl whispered 6 desperate words, Tobias Calloway had made his choice, and in choosing compassion over fear, action over indifference, he discovered that heroes aren't born. They're ordinary people who decide that some things matter more than safety, more than convenience, more than their own comfort. They're people who show up when a child needs help, who stay when it gets hard, who build families not from blood but from love and choice and the unshakable belief that every child deserves protection. Tobias finished his tea, turned off the lights, and checked both girls one last time before bed. They slept peacefully, safe and loved. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight they were home, and that was everything.